It's been a long weekend, and it's especially been a long day. So I'm just really happy that I can get onto this mic and start just talking about the Tennessee Titans. It's quite relieving, honestly, and I'm very happy that I get to do this every Monday or Tuesday afternoon. But anyway, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Tennessee Titans number 1 overall pick. Yes, again, I get it. Okay, I understand. It's a little bit annoying at this point, but here's what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about 4 players that have all been rumored to go number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to talk about all 4 of them and the case that they have for going first overall. Specifically, I'm going to be going over who do I think the Titans want. So we're going to do a scale of 1 to 10. How likely do I think that they will go number 1? 1 is they'd be lucky to even make it into the first round or even the draft. 10 being, oh yeah, they're a lock for number 1. Caleb Williams would be a 10. Brock Purdy would have been a 1 in his draft class. That was Mr. Irrelevant for context. You probably heard that a lot, though, over that season. But let's get into today's episode, okay? We're going to go from least likely to most likely, and I'll give y'all specific numbers. Okay, so starting out, we have Travis Hunter. Okay, I get it. A lot of people want this because, it's Travis Hunter. Two-way threat. He's just absolutely fun to watch. And he comes from Colorado, one of the most marketable teams in all of college football. And yes, he's a Heisman winner. And yes, he also is probably the closest thing that this class has to a generational talent if he decides to play both positions in the NFL. But there are 2 things. First off, I think that his draft stock is going to get hurt significantly if he is only a DB in the draft. I think that he is a really good DB, and I think that he has the potential to be one of the best DBs in the league for a long time, but I feel like that it'll kill the number 1 overall pick hype. I think he'll just become another top 10 pick if he's only a cornerback or only a receiver. It's supposed to be that he's only a cornerback, mostly just because of what he signed up for at the combine. So, again, I don't think this one is that likely, mostly just because of the position stuff alone. And also, y'all got to remember, Colorado played in the Big 12. I don't think I need to say that much more, but I will. That's one of the worst conferences in the Power 4. Actually, no, let me scratch that. That's tough. It's between that and the SEC. We'll have to get back to that on a later date, but still. It's overall a really hard debate for me to just 100% say that Travis Hunter will be the guy at number 1. Actually, I think this is the least likely out of all of them. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 because I do think that he is a top 5 pick talent. It's just that the fact that he is only going at one position, combined with the fact that it's cornerback, which historically doesn't really go that high, minus the Derek Stingleys of the world. That's why I have him not going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, and why I think it is the least likely and probably the option that the Titans are the least high on right now. So there's that. Okay, moving on to number 3. We have Abdul Carter. Yes, I'm putting the non-quarterbacks here because I feel like that Bergonzi is going to want to come in and set the tone by drafting a quarterback and going for a big swing in his first ever draft. And I seriously do believe that if he wants to go for that, he's not just going to be Abdul Carter, a defensive lineman. We're so used to that, right? And I just do not see him drafting this number 1 overall. Now, do I see this ending up happening where they trade back to 3 and then they're like, okay, I want an offensive lineman, that I want Abdul Carter, defensive lineman? 100%. That is a very, very, very likely scenario that I could definitely see working out. But the problem with that is that he is again, it's just kind of the status quo, and I feel like that this new general manager, Mike Borgonzi, is going to want to set the tone with something new. But that is nothing to go against Abdul Carter. He's my favorite prospect in this draft, personally. I think he is one of the best edge prospects that we've seen in a while. He has played against decent competition too. Again, it's just like I don't think that they're going to want to stick to the status quo. And also, it's not really that big of a need. Don't get me wrong; it's a decently sized need. But the problem is that the bigger needs on this roster are QB and offensive tackle, which obviously they're not going to draft. Which obviously they're not going to draft offensive tackle number one over. Hence, why I have the quarterbacks at numbers 2 and number 1. So that leaves you with a question: who are number 2 and number 1? Well, there are two specific. Well, there is a way for me to divide this. All right, and if you have been watching the channel for a while, you probably know what is coming. You're probably gonna think, oh, it's definitely not gonna be that dude, and it's definitely gonna be this dude. And for those people that have been watching for a while, you'd be right. All right, because next person that I have is Shedeur Sanders. Now, again, I will do a mock draft with him soon. I promise. I did Cam Ward. I did Abdul Carter. It's only fair that I do Shedeur Sanders, and then I'll do Travis Hunter at some point. But still, I will do that at some point. But anyway, Shedeur Sanders, amazing stats. Again, doesn't play in the best conference, but he is very fun to watch. He has decent accuracy, and he has showed the ability to make some athletic plays. But I did notice whenever I did watch his film or whenever I have heard about his film, because I like to let the smarter people watch the film, and then I just kind of listen to what they have to say, because again, I'm not a film maestro. Okay, I've never played football in my life. So from what I've heard from the experts, it's that even from the highlights that I've watched, every touchdown that I saw him get was like a big yak play. Like the receiver did a lot to help that play become a big explosive touchdown or something like that. Now, to be fair, yes, was also a problem with Bo Nix. And that is something that you got to take into consideration. I don't really have that much else to say to where it's just like, but Shedeur, I guess that like Bo Nix was more experienced. I have no clue what to say for that. But still, okay, so you probably noticed a little bit of a jump cut of sorts. For context, that was because my laptop, I think it died or it updated. I couldn't tell what it was doing, but it's back on now, and now I'm getting back to recording. So where was I? I think I was at Shedeur Sanders and how he would make a profit. Yeah, okay. So like this is something that you have to take a look at from a business perspective. I don't know how you feel about Shedeur Sanders. You probably know how I feel about Shedeur Sanders, especially if you've been watching. But what I do know about Shedeur Sanders is that if we draft him, we will make bank off his name. Like, everybody's going to want to come to the Titans games just because they're interested to see what Shedeur will do. The media will finally start giving us attention, and a lot of those good things will happen. Now, again, and I think it would just be funny just to see the media be so upset about the Titans drafting Shedeur Sanders. And they're just like, oh, it's so great that Deion Sanders' son is a Titan. Wow, so awesome. Like, that would be the type of vibe that it gave off, and I think that would be absolutely hilarious personally. But hey, who am I to say that? Like, I'm not the judge of this. So still though, I think that it would be quite funny if that happened. But again, my biggest thing is that, like, I don't know, I think he could be fine, but he's not my favorite of the two quarterbacks. And also, I don't know what it is. There's just something that gives me a weird vibe about the fact that he made himself a rap song. I don't know. Like, that just seemed a little off. And whenever he asked Cam Ward, hey, do you want to collab with me? And he's just like, man, I'm just worried about the draft right now. And I'm just like, Oh man, I don't know about Shdur, man. I question some of the other stuff. Not on the field, obviously, because he still has some good talent on the field. But I just question his leadership ability, like genuinely question it. Like I know that there are some people that will be like, "It's a false narrative. You're an idiot," but like, or I'm an idiot, but like, you still get the vibe of like. He's just like there's just something about his leadership that I just don't like, and there's something about the other quarterback's leadership that I do really really love. And I don't know, I know this is my personal opinion, just leaking into here, but even though I do think the Titans are desperate for profit, especially Amy Adams Strunk, who is barely even a billionaire. Oh, I know the misery, but still, like compared to a lot of other NFL owners, like she's one of the uh least rich out there. So like, anywho, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10 for chance of happening, just because I do think that the profit, combined with the fact that it's a quarterback, combined with the fact that he has shown flashes of potentially being great, I think all of those crammed into one, and also the fact that he's a scheme fit for Brian Callahan, and Brian Callahan's been very vocal about that, I could 100% see this one happening. Do I want it to happen? I don't know about that. But I do think that it definitely has a chance. Okay, so last player. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Jackson Dart or Diego Pavia? It's Cam Ward. That's really, I don't even need to keep going. It's Cam Ward. Okay, I think that this is the most likely pick that happens with the Tennessee Titans. If they stick at number one, I think they will 100% pick Cam Ward with the first overall pick. I'm not giving it a 10 just because of a couple of other things that are in my mind, but first thing that I gotta say, he was a Heisman candidate. Like, again, similar thing with Travis Hunter being a Heisman winner, that gets you big bonus points whenever you're going into the NFL. Like, even if even if you're not expected to be like that great in the NFL and you're just a college wonder, like you're still going to get some like interest about like, hey, this guy won a Heisman. Are we sure that's not just his mentality that's carried him to this point, and that, or like, are we sure that his mentality won't carry him in the NFL? But then that ends up leading to the fact that there's a lot of Heisman winners that it's just like, oh, he had the mentality for college and he was athletic enough, but in the NFL, he's just not athletic enough, Like, there's always that part of it. But the truth is, the truth is that he is just something very special outside of that type of stuff about the Heisman and stuff. Like, he has the sheer athleticism that I think that it takes for him to make it big. He has absolutely amazing arm talent. He can make a lot of throws on the field, and he's got underrated accuracy. Like, a lot of people are just like, oh, he's not that accurate, therefore we can't draft him. Like Mike Leach said, you can't develop accuracy. Like, he's accurate. I mean, like, it's not like he's just like, throwing absolute perfect balls every single time, but he is accurate enough for his arm strength, okay? So I just want to get that. Also, dude's got a killer mentality, okay? I'm recording this on a Tuesday, and the last quote that came from him was this. And this is him on any NFL teams that are willing to pass up on him for another player, whether that's Shedeur, Abdul Carter, or Travis Hunter. This is what he had to say. Okay, you're either going to draft me or not. If you don't draft me, that's your fault. You've got to remember, you're the same team that's got to play me for the rest of my career, and I'll remember that. Okay, so, like, obviously, quotes are just like a bunch of stuff where it's just like, you could see them and just be like, oh, yeah, he's just making an empty promise and all that stuff. But that right there, like, I don't know, like, having that type of mentality going into the draft is just like, that just makes you think this kid is at least going to work hard. He has the processing power for it, and he's got the arm strength for it. And again, he has the motivation. He has that X factor, that it, And you've got to also remember that that, he could also look at it as, you're thinking, what if he doesn't go first? What if he does go first overall and then there was nobody drafted ahead of him? Well, he could take a look at that and be like, well, the Giants didn't think that I was good enough to trade up for. Same thing with the Raiders and the Browns. And then he uses that as his motivation. NFL players, if they're good, will find motivation. We'll find motivation no matter what. I'm throwing my pin out here. But this guy, again, that is the mentality that I am looking for in a quarterback. I think that he has all the stuff. I think that he's got the right height. And again, this is my personal opinion linking in, but I do think that this staff will believe the same, especially Borgonzi, because he's seen this story before. Not saying he's the next Patrick Mahomes. I really want to clarify that. But I am saying that he has the traits that a Mahomes did coming out of college. Okay, so last thing though, obviously I've talked about a negative with everybody else. The problem with Cam Ward is that he played really questionable talent in college. It started out with him at some community college. He was really good there, obviously. He's not going to be up for the number one pick for nothing. He ended up transferring to Washington State. I actually remember telling some people that this kid was going to be good at Washington State. Obviously, you probably don't believe that, but it is true. I promise. Okay? I promise that it is true. You can ask other people. All right? But still, he transferred to Washington State. Again, questionable competition. Pac-12. Decent conference, just really bad defenses. Dices is up there in some ways. Probably the only reason that Washington State was any good through his tenure there. And then that leads to the Miami run, which obviously that's probably the greatest example of why he is potentially the number one pick. His performance at Miami, dicing up almost every single team that he played against, and not really having a truly terrible football game. That is the stuff that I get excited about. That is what I really enjoy, watching crappy teams play each other. And the truth is that even though I do like watching that, and I think that's absolutely amazing, and, even though I do think that he's played against questionable competition, and even though I do think that shouldn't be a knock on him, it's obviously got to be a knock on him from a scout's perspective, from another fan's perspective. That is something that is questionable. But that doesn't mean that this pick is not very, very likely to happen. I gave this a 9 out of 10. Golly, that's really high up, honestly. For context, I had a 2-point difference between who I think is second most likely and who's most likely. And quite frankly, I don't feel like I'm going to have that big of a gap most of the time whenever I'm doing this in my podcasting career, however long that lasts. But still, Cam Ward probably the most likely to go number one. Okay, that's it for today's episode. I have Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok all under the Titans Rundown, and I do have the Vols Rundown. I'm going to get back to that. This was the very last week I'll go without posting it out. It will come back this week. I'll guarantee you that. But anyway, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and tighten up.